office's press release was very clear that he made his statement. We also talked about other things.
So you talked about abortion?
No, we didn't talk about it. He made his statement about life, and we also talked about hunger and poverty and climate change and religious freedom and my family, and we had a lovely conversation.
And here's something else you might not know. Abortion in America has remained relatively unchanged for decades. Since the 1990s, roughly 600,000 women terminate their pregnancies each year. Less than 12% of abortions are performed for medical reasons. In Europe, the practice is mostly banned after 14 weeks. The nations with the highest rates of abortion: Vietnam, China, North Korea, Russia, India, and Canada. Back in a moment. Are you trapped in a timeshare? Fees rise every year, while availability keeps shrinking, and resorts make exiting nearly impossible. That's why I endorse only one timeshare exit company, Lone Star Transfer. They're family-owned, transparent, committed to treating every client with respect while telling you the truth. Lone Star Transfer has helped more than 40,000 owners exit their timeshares legally and ethically through a simple, proven process. First, you receive a complimentary case review to confirm eligibility. Next, an exit strategy is customized to your specific situation. Finally, the Lone Star Transfer team implements your plan, guarantees results. I have partnered with the owners for more than 5 years, personally witnessed the outcomes delivered to our listeners. No surprise fees, no unused vacations, no stress, peace of mind. So please visit LoneStarTransfer.com or call 855-551-7066. Thank you for listening to the O'Reilly Update. I am Bill O'Reilly. No spin, just facts, and always looking out for you.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefontaine, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. One European nation is banning Chinese vehicles from its military facilities to prevent espionage. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports.
The Polish army says that Chinese manufacturers of modern cars, which can collect video, audio, and location data, could share it with the Chinese government. Under the ban, modern cars are allowed into secure areas only if recording and tracking functions stay switched off. It also bans connecting official Polish Army phones to any China-made car infotainment system. The Polish Army calls the move preventative and in line with other NATO practices. China is rejecting the security claim. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
A deadly multi-vehicle pileup in Colorado claims at least 4 lives. Correspondent Mike Hempen reports.
The crashes Tuesday on both sides of Interstate 25 south of Pueblo occurred at a time when authorities say blowing dirt made it nearly impossible to see. The Colorado State Patrol says dirt kicked up by heavy winds caused brownout conditions. 29 people suffered injuries ranging from minor to serious. The crashes involved 6 semi-trailers. The patrol says another vehicle involved was a pickup hauling a trailer carrying 32 goats, 4 of which died. The cause of the crashes is being investigated. I'm Mike Hempel.
The billionaire behind the retail empire that once blanketed shopping malls with names such as Victoria's Secret and Abercrombie & Fitch is telling members of Congress that he was duped by a world-class con man, his close financial advisor Jeffrey Epstein. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 129 points, the Nasdaq rose 175, the S&P advanced 38. More at townhall.com.
Do you owe back taxes or have unfiled tax returns? The IRS won't quit until they get your money. Here's great news, fresh from those in the know. Major changes have happened at the IRS. If you owe more than $10,000, you may be eligible for a 99% reduction of what you owe. Haven't filed a return for a while? Their happy clients are talking.
The IRS was going to levy my bank account, but Guardian was able to prevent that and fix all my IRS issues. Thanks again, Guardian Tax.
Need relief from crushing tax debt? The IRS now has special programs. Guardian Tax knows all about them. Personal or business, this is the fresh new break you've been hoping for.
We aren't the company you call when you need a hug because you're scared of the IRS. Guardian Tax is the company that wins when you need it most.
Guardian Tax Service is really great to work with. They really helped me out. I'd recommend them highly.
Call now for a free confidential consultation. 800-505-2906. 800-505-2906. 800.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. The warm weather continues for one more day, but Thursday is a First Alert weather day. We'll be on guard for an isolated severe threat. Better chances east of St. Louis, but still be on guard late morning to early afternoon in the metro and areas east of St. Louis through about 5-6 o'clock. Otherwise, a low of 49 in the morning, a high of 71. And again, these will be isolated storms, not widespread, but still on guard for a brief severe threat. Friday, mostly sunny, breezy, and colder, a high around 50 degrees. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner and the entire Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD.
Is your portfolio prepared for the biggest risks facing investors today? Hi, it's Tim Jones. High inflation and a rapidly changing economy may impact your investments. If you haven't made appropriate changes, your portfolio may not be positioned to address some of the biggest risks in today's economy. That means it's time to request your free portfolio review from the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel. You can hear their latest views on the markets and investing during On the Money, hosted by Stifel financial advisors Bob Stockdale and Eric Robert, every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on News Talk STL 101.9. They can help you get organized, guide you through critical retirement decisions, and create a portfolio designed around your needs. To schedule your free portfolio review, go to clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com, 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas & Company, Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
The boats are back at Missouri's premier boat and fishing show.
February 20th through 22nd at America Center.
Take advantage of screaming deals on hundreds of boats.
Check out wake surf and pontoon boats,
fishing boats and luxury cruisers,
personal watercraft, and more.
Enjoy non-stop entertainment.
Live stingrays, pro angler demos.
Get ready for fun in the sun
at the St. Louis Boat and Fishing Show.
February 20th through 22nd at America Center.
Go to stlouisboatshows.com for info. Kids are free.
If you find yourself feeling out of place in the world, it's comforting to know conservative values haven't been abandoned everywhere.
Thanks for being my voice in all this.
This is News Talk STL.
There are people out there that feel the way that I feel and say what I say.
Welcome home. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Well, this is the 5th anniversary of the loss of a really great man, a great conservative, Rush Limbaugh. I'd never met Rush when I announced that I was running, and I got a call all excited that Rush Limbaugh just endorsed you. I never met him. He liked my opening speech. He liked when I got up in June and I said, we got bad borders, we got bad crime, we got bad everything. So to his family, his great wife and family, I just want to say we miss you all. We miss him. And there'll never be anybody like him. Thank you very much.
Indeed, there will not. We stand on the shoulders of such a giant, all of us here who do talk radio, especially center-right, common sense, conservative talk radio every single day. The 5th anniversary of the passing of the great Rush Limbaugh. I thought that was very kind, Chris, of the president to do a bit of an homage to him today and to remind us of what a great communicator that he was.
He was a great communicator, and the thing that I always said that made Rush Limbaugh such a great radio talk show host was, one, he could entertain you, which in very creative skits that he would do. But I think the one thing that set Rush Limbaugh apart from other talk show hosts, conservative or liberal, is that he had a keen understanding of people. And when you're involved in politics, you have to read people, you have to know what makes people tick. And Rush Limbaugh was very, very good at that. And that helped him with some of the political analysis that he gave. Mm-hmm. I used to say all the time, if Rush Limbaugh hadn't been a radio talk show host, he would have been an excellent political operative, campaign operative, because he understood politics, he understood what made people think. And that is what made him so successful, because he could distill down to the average folks listening to his radio show exactly what politics was all about, why this was happening, why that was happening. And he was very, very good at that, and he could mix that with entertainment as well. And, I have to admit, I kind of model my radio talk show career on him because, I've been involved in politics. I've worked on campaigns, advised campaigns. I kind of have that insider kind of view of how things work. And that's what I try to give every day here on the radio, kind of my analysis based on my political experience. And a lot of that is based on Rush Limbaugh because he did the exact same thing. He was a brilliant political tactician. He really was.
Excellent storyteller, infotainment, and analysis at its best. It's what we give you here every afternoon on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 1019, 94.1 News Talk STL, streaming worldwide on the News Talk STL app and at newstalkstl.com. I'm back in studio today from Jefferson City. I'll have a story or two to tell you about what's going on at the Capitol. There was a bit of an exciting vote taken today on something we discussed yesterday, the video lottery terminals. We've got a lot of other things to get to as well. I'm here. Chris is here, as you heard, and producer Joey V is here as well. Speaking of the media, we're going to discuss this issue of Stephen Colbert. I don't know if any of our listeners care what Stephen Colbert says or thinks, but he made a complete misstatement and misstep in talking about what we often refer to sometimes as the Equal Time Act. Colbert versus CBS and the FCC. We're going to talk to Michael Morris, Director of Free Speech at the Media Research Center, about the fact that Apple News, what about that? How about that? Big tech systemically suppressing conservative news sites.
Going back to Rush Limbaugh for just a second, I think the president has a little bit wrong. He kind of gave the impression that Rush Limbaugh was a supporter of Donald Trump from the very beginning, and I don't think that is exactly the case. I've said it here many times. I was on the Cruz campaign in 3 states. I was listening to Rush Limbaugh every day of his career back from 1993, I think, when it started. I was a daily listener. And if you listen to Rush during that 2016 campaign, I think he was vacillating between support for Ted Cruz and for Donald Trump. I think he supported both of them, or was very supportive of both of them at that time. But I think when Donald Trump started getting more and more momentum and was saying things that his listeners liked hearing, and Rush felt that Donald Trump really had his finger on the pulse of conservative America, you saw a more and more of a shift towards allegiance towards Donald Trump during that campaign. But I think he was supportive of both of them. But I think eventually Trump was his man.
Mm-hmm, indeed. I had listened to Rush Limbaugh because back in the 80s, because he was the only game in town for a long time. He literally invented, talk radio has been around for a long time, but making political talk radio as a form of infotainment Rush Limbaugh really perfected that art. And in the 80s, he was the biggest thing on talk radio. Sean Hannity was probably still a kid in college back then, a little bit older. Sean was probably the next one. But I remember listening to Rush a lot in New York City, of all places. A lot of times we called them livery cab drivers. They were like pre-Uber. So you had the official yellow taxi cabs with the official New York City medallion, which used to cost millions of dollars. And then you had kind of the unofficial cabs, the livery cabs is what we called them. And they were just whatever vehicle somebody could get. And I remember this one time where I got in this livery cab, and it was a recent immigrant to our country, and he was listening to Rush Limbaugh. And I asked him about that, and the guy said, look, I like Rush Limbaugh. He talks about the free market, and I'm trying to be an entrepreneur and all this. I didn't listen to Rush for a long time, and then I was doing Springfield radio for a few years before we launched this station, and the station I was on in Springfield was the mighty KWTO, and that was the Rush Limbaugh station. I started listening to Rush again because he would follow the morning show, and I had forgotten he was so engaging. Like, I wanted to hear what he had to say next because he always kept you hanging for that next segment. And I cannot believe he's been gone 5 years.
Part of Rush Limbaugh's success also, and he said this himself, is that at that time, Rush talk radio was mostly a night medium. You listen to talk radio at night, and those hosts were of the liberal, left-leaning bent, and he was the first person that really was a talk show host that came from the right. And he touched the hearts and the minds of millions of people because they felt that Rush was talking for them. And I think that is what exploded his audience, 15 million daily listeners, because there were millions of people out there that felt that he was speaking for them, and they hadn't heard that if ever, during that time. And he was kind of a stalwart against the liberal media. And a lot of people appreciated that.
He is Missouri's own from the Cape Girardeau region, and his bust now sits proudly in the Hall of Famous Missourians on the third floor rotunda. Little fun fact, it is the only bust in the Hall of Famous Missourians in the third floor rotunda in the Capitol that actually has a camera on it, because when he was originally installed by Speaker Steve Tilley back around 11-12, the Democrats at that time threatened to take the bust and throw it in the Missouri River. So a camera was placed on it. I don't know if it's still active or not, but if you look up above the bust of Rush Limbaugh, that camera is still there.
Yeah, you either loved Rush Limbaugh or you hated Rush Limbaugh. Of course, the left hated him, and you needed a camera over that because he, brought such feelings against him because of his beliefs. And it's also part of the reason why a lot of people don't know this, that he's actually buried here in St. Louis at Bell Fountain Cemetery. I have visited the site, and I think that's done on purpose because they don't want people going out there desecrating his grave or doing something negative to it. But I visited his grave several times. And, Rush Limbaugh was a multi-millionaire, very, very famous man, talk show radio host, Hall of Fame. But if you go out there to his grave, it's not some big extravagant thing like you see with some of the other famous people that are buried out there. It's a big, I don't know what you call it. It's not really a mausoleum, but it's really a huge gravestone that he is buried inside that. But other than that, you wouldn't know unless you went up there and saw his name that that's where Rush Limbaugh is buried.
Indeed. Speaking of the media, we're going to speak to the Media Research Center at 425. How about them apples? Apple News found to have systemically suppressed conservative news sites. We're going to talk to Michael Morris, Director of Free Speech at the Media Research Center, about that and how Stephen Colbert got involved in all of this as well. 445, we'll, of course, feature Chris's Corner today.
Yeah, we're going to do a follow-up on yesterday's Chris's Corner, the Munich in Confusion. Confusion in Munich, whatever one it was. But we're going to talk about the Democrats' 2028 auditions, how that is going with some of the people that we think are probably going to run for president in 2028, their activities, what they're doing, what they're saying. I'll go over that at 445 on Chris's Corner.
Indeed. An update on how money moves. Yes, I saw some additional stories the other day over the last few days about the continued aspect, the continued theory that we know is true, and that is people tend to vote with their feet these days when seeking low tax, low regulation climates. That'll be the subject of the stump speech. At 5:25, an old friend of ours, former state senator Jeff Smith, the Democrat, the lovable Democrat. We're going to have debate with a Democrat at 5:25 today. Chris and I have both been on radio programs with Jeff many times in the past, but I don't know that we've ever brought him here on News Talk STL on our show. We're going to feature him today. Jeff's one of those guys. I don't know where he is these days. He used to be what I would call a sensible Democrat. I actually was the House sponsor of a couple of his big pieces of legislation when he was a state senator. He knew things to ask me to help him with and things not to ask me to help him with. But the things that Jeff and I agreed on were things like educational reform and school choice and criminal justice. He's now in the private sector working on all those. He wrote a book in 2015, Mr. Smith Goes to Prison, because he did. And he has an amazing redemption story to talk about that as well. We talked to our good friend Jeff Smith at 5:25.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to talk to Jeff. He, of course, was a former state senator, had a little issues with the law there, did a little time in prison. But overall, I always felt that he was an honest broker when it came to politics. His politics, of course, were left of center of mind, but he was an honest Democrat, and he is one of the few Democrats that actually can explain why he believes what he believes, not just reciting a bunch of talking points. So it'll be refreshing to talk with former Senator Jeff Smith and see exactly what he is up to nowadays.
Runs his own company, J.R. Smith Policy Solutions. They focus on advising nonprofits on public safety and criminal justice reform. So we'll try to cover as much ground as we can with former State Senator Jeff Smith at 5:25. And then, of course, we'll have some very interesting information to deliver to all you all near the end of the program, Chris.
Yeah, the end of the show, the boss versus the chief.
Boss versus the chief. I'm very excited to hear what that is all about indeed. Hey, 48 hours from now, Chris and I and Joey will be road tripping to statewide Lincoln Days. Yes, we'll be in Springfield in 2 days' time. We'll be broadcasting live at the Missouri GOP statewide Lincoln Days. It's going to be a star-studded affair. Keynote speaker on Friday night's dinner will be U.S. Senator Eric Schmidt and a lot of other of our notable statewides and elected officials. We'll be broadcasting live from Springfield, the beautiful Oasis Hotel and Convention Center. If you can join us live, please do swing by. We will be prominently displayed front and center somewhere near the Convention Center entrance. And we'll be broadcasting the show. We'll have a ton of guests, as we always do when we do these live remotes. I want to thank Joey in advance for going down and staking the place out and getting us the best spot that he's able to.
Oh, of course. And I'm going to just make sure I come with my own tables, too, and my own chairs, and just bring this entire radio station with me. It's way easier than doing it here.
Yes, we'll be taking the show on the road, indeed, this weekend. And we hope to see you in Springfield. If you can't make the trip, just tune us in. It'll be a star-studded affair. We'll have all the VIP policymakers and political officials you'll need to know about. Chris, we were talking the other day about the video lottery terminal bill. It only received 60-some-odd votes on the first round. You need 82 to get it out of the House. Well, there was a very dramatic scene today where they brought that bill up for final House passage, and they eked out 83 votes for the bill. It's headed to the Senate. We'll see if it'll die a slow death there or if it will make it across the finish line this year. A lot of pressure on that subject this year because the feds are getting involved. The state authorities are getting involved. There was a judicial decision this week declaring that at least some of these machines are illegal gambling devices. And so there's a lot more pressure on the legislature to do something to take these machines out of the gray world that they're in.
Yeah, I've always thought it's an absolute no-brainer that these are illegal gambling machines, no matter what anyone says. But when you have lobbyists and you have a lot of money to give to politicians and pay lobbyists to advocate on your behalf, you can flout the law for years and years, as this company has done. I hope that it is resolved. I'm glad to see that the judge said that these are illegal gambling machines because that's exactly what they are.
And now the legislature is trying to tackle that subject indeed. All right, 421 here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. We are going to step aside, and then when we come back, we're going to speak about the fact that Apple News has been found through a new study to have systematically suppressed conservative news sites like perhaps News Talk STL. We'll talk to Michael Morris, the Director of Free Speech at the Media Research Center, about that and more when we come back at 1019 941 News Talk STL.
Follow us on Rumble at News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. The warm weather continues for one more day, but Thursday is a First Alert weather day. We'll be on guard for an isolated severe threat. Better chances east of St. Louis, but still be on guard late morning to early afternoon in the metro and areas east of St. Louis through about 5, 6 o'clock. Otherwise, a low of 49 in the morning, a high of 71. And again, these will be isolated storms, not widespread, but still on guard for a brief severe threat. Friday, mostly sunny, breezy, and colder, a high around 50 degrees. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
I listen to News Talk STL on the app driving to work.
Download the News Talk STL app.
You got to get the News Talk STL app.
Love the app. Can listen anywhere in St. Louis.
And listen anytime.
News Talk STL right on my phone.
Anywhere.
Hey, let me tell you about a dental practice I don't just recommend. I am a proud patient for probably a few years now. The Dental Link. It's run by Dr. Alan Link and his son Andrew, and I can tell you can actually feel the difference the moment that you walk in. I have dental implants, so this is personal for me. This isn't cosmetic fluff. This is serious dental work. They took the time to explain everything, made sure I was comfortable, and treated me like a person, not as a procedure. One thing, as I've been saying, that really stood out to me is the staff. Dr. Link treats his team like family, and you can tell they genuinely enjoy working there. And that shows in how relaxed, professional, and attentive they are with their patients. And if you're nervous about implants like I was, here's something important. The Dental Link also offers mini dental implants, a minimally invasive alternative that often means less pain, shorter recovery times, and a reduced risk of complications compared to traditional implants. My implants have been a game changer. They look natural, they feel natural, and gave me back confidence. Honestly, I didn't even realize I'd lost. The Dental Link's Baldwin office is located near 141 and Manchester, and you can reach them at 636-496-8854, or you can learn more at thedentallink.com, thedentallink.com. Do good, do it well, have fun doing it. That's their motto.
Hey, it's Susie Moore. If new flooring makes you think hassle, think again, because Michael's Flooring is changing the game. For over 30 years, Michael's has been locally owned and trusted for quality, variety, and amazing service. Whether it's carpet, hardwood, laminate, luxury vinyl, or ceramic tile, their expert team makes installing new floors exciting, not stressful. That's why customers keep coming back. Visit Michael's Flooring at St. Peter's, Starting Prairie, Creve Coeur, or online at igotfloored.com. That's igotfloored.com.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on Newstalk STL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
All right, as we come back here, another late-night host at odds with network bosses. It's Stephen Colbert this time after he told his viewers he was stopped from airing an interview in order to steer clear of the FCC. So CBS actually says they didn't say that. The network put a statement out disputing the Colbert account, saying that The Late Show was not prohibited from broadcasting the interview with Congressman James Tallarico, but rather given legal guidance that doing so could trigger the FCC's equal time rule. They add, quote, The Late Show decided to present the interview through its YouTube channel with a promotion on the broadcast rather than potentially providing the equal time option.
427 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. And Tim, I have to admit, I have not been following this case too closely. I have seen the headlines on it, but it looks like there is a little feud between Stephen Colbert and the network. They're saying that they didn't deny James Tallarico, the Texas Senate Republican or Senate Democrat candidate, for being on. Stephen Colbert says they did. Let's talk with Michael Morris, Director of Free Speech at the Media Research Center. He can get this all out in the open for us. Michael, how are you, my friend?
Doing well. Thank you for having me on the program.
All right. For those that aren't following this as closely as they should, and I admittedly am one of them, what is the gist of this story here? Who's telling the truth?
Well, it's a great question. Look, the FCC has this thing called the equal time rule. What it does is it actually prevents partisan favoritism. And CBS actually wisely pulled Tallarico interview to avoid violating this longstanding equal time law from the FCC, which mandates that there is equivalent opportunity for all qualified candidates in the same race. And this particular race is a primary for the Democrats. And so what was happening here is that Colbert wanted to have his favorite candidate on while locking out other candidates like Jasmine Crockett, who was actually leading Tallarico by 8 points, and any other candidates that were in the primary as well. Colbert wanted to have his cake and eat it too.
A little Democratic feud fest here, apparently, Michael. So I think a lot of these media talents, when they become, quote, big time like Colbert, I guess they don't understand or don't feel like the FCC broadcast rules apply to them. But he's on a old school network, so therefore the rules do apply to him, whether he likes it or not, right?
Yeah, look, that's an excellent point. And something that's interesting about the Trump administration is something that's been missing for quite some time. I think you might even have to harken back to Ronald Reagan back in the 80s. Trump and his administration, they follow the law, but what they also do is they break all the norms. These broadcast networks have been getting away with these sort of shenanigans, this partisan nonsense for far too long now. And the Trump administration is saying, you know what? No, broadcast networks belong on limited government bandwidth. And as a result, they need to be regulated. And there are laws in the books. And yes, even you, Colbert, have to follow the law.
Very interesting because, if you watch late night television shows, they have become political programs, and you see Democrats on these shows, especially during election years, night after night after night, never seem to worry about equal time until now. And I'm wondering, how much do you think this has to do with CBS kind of changing their editorial bent to middle of the road? They have a new news director. We read yesterday that Anderson Cooper is leaving 60 Minutes. I think that part of the reason is because CBS is becoming more middle of the road. How much do you think that played into CBS saying that, evoking equal time here, allegedly?
Well, it may have had something to do with it, but we've also been tracking CBS, and CBS has not come fully our way yet either. They're still rather leftist. And it's no surprise, late night shows are still partisan platforms. They're not comedy. MRC has been tracking this since 2022. 97% of the guests on late night shows are either liberal or Democrat guests. 97%, and that's since 2022. And look, yeah, CBS got this right. They acted responsibly, saying, look, they're going to pull this. And Colbert, of course, wanted to prioritize his agenda. But the show still aired on YouTube. So it's all about the broadcast network issue here.
Yeah. Michael, are these rules because of the rise of streaming? Well, first we had the rise of cable, and now it's streaming. Is the days of the network broadcaster, are they kind of the dinosaurs still roaming the land? I guess I'm wondering, because these same rules, it's very different rules, right, for the cable and the streamers, right? So do the broadcasters get special privileges, rights, ability? Do they get, I guess I'm wondering, like, explain to our audience the difference between, like, the broadcast world versus, like, the cable and streaming world and how these rules kind of apply.
So yeah, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Broadcast is very different from everyone else in that it's spectrum, and spectrum is actually provided by government, and it's limited. So what that means is that these broadcast networks are actually riding on public airwaves, and it's in a way it's a subsidy, and so the taxpayer is actually, on the hook for the information that's being shared on these networks, and as a result, there has to be balance and fairness, which is why this FCC rule, this equal time rule, exists to begin with. And as I mentioned before, Trump breaks the norms, but he follows the law, and that's why you see FCC Chairman Brendan Carr out there saying, look, if you're going to have one candidate on, you've got to have the other candidates on as well.
Speaking with Michael Morris, Director of Free Speech at the Media Research Center, mrc.org. Michael, I'm sure you're following this. There is a huge case happening in California on the Meta platform. CEO and billionaire Mark Zuckerberg was scheduled to testify today. There is a young woman who is suing these platforms, saying that they caused her addiction to social media. Give us your views on this from a director of free media speech perspective and as an attorney. Do you think this case has any merit?
Well, it's interesting. And look, we here at the Media Research Center wish that, it wouldn't be left to jurors to decide this. We wish that Congress would have actually stepped in and actually provided some guardrails. Back a long time ago, Congress did step in and create this little thing called Section 230, which paved the way for a lot of the nonsense that you see today, but that's because it's sort of been morphed out of control by the judiciary. And the concern here is that this might get morphed out of control again by a select number of jurors coming down and saying either something far too expansive with regard to free speech and what the social media platforms can do, or maybe far too narrow. Congress needs to step in and do its job and actually provide some guardrails while protecting free speech and protecting children at the same time.
Michael, there's another big bombshell story out based on a recent MRC Media Research Center study finding that Apple News, which is on a lot of our telephones every single day and provides access to a lot of other platforms. However, the MRC study found that Apple News was systematically suppressing conservative news sites. Michael, I know history doesn't repeat itself, but this sure sounds like an echo from like the COVID years when we were talking about big tech censorship around that time. Tell us what y'all found.
Yeah, so this is pretty wild. Trust in the elitist media has gone in the toilet. It's just absolutely horrible. And yet we see network elitist media outlets like the New York Times, CNN, Washington Post, the Associated Press, The Guardian, NBC News, ABC, CBS, still getting massive amounts of traffic. They're all in the top 50 on Press Gazette for viewership, monthly viewership. And we're just thinking to ourselves, my goodness, where's all this traffic coming from? Well, we did some digging here at the Media Research Center, so your viewing audience doesn't have to. And what's happening is it is big tech propping up the same elitist media entities that the American public is sick of across the networks and across the elitist media outlets. Apple News, perhaps chief among them, extremely leftist biased, and the story that you were talking about is a study that we did over January. Of the top 20 articles in its morning editions from January 1 to January 31st, 2026, 620 were either left-leaning or center outlets, 0 right-leaning stories. That's the bottom line. 0 right-leaning stories during the morning editions during the entire month of January.
Michael, is there a legal remedy for this? I mean, is the free market come into play here where this is their site and if they want to pump out left-leaning material, that's their right? Or is there a legal remedy to this, or do conservatives and others need to vote with their feet and go to other news outlets?
Look, this is where what FTC Chairman Ferguson said in his open letter to the Apple CEO Tim Cook. This is what he was warning about. He said that Apple could face potential violations of federal consumer protection law if it claims neutrality and is meanwhile suppressing content based on political or ideological viewpoints. Okay, so he says, and I'm going to quote him here, the First Amendment protects the speech of big tech firms, but the First Amendment has never extended its protection to material misrepresentations made to consumers, nor does it immunize speakers from conduct that Congress has deemed unfair under the FTC Act, even if that conduct involves speech. So what he's saying here, if Apple holds itself out as some sort of neutral arbiter of news and it's suppressing one side, well, then it may have committed fraud on the consumers that it's giving news for.
Speaking to Michael Morris, Director of Free Speech at the Media Research Center. Michael, you all have a lot of great information at one of your other sister sites as well, newsbusters.org. And this headline really caught my attention because the New York Times has been in the spotlight quite a bit over the last few days. Your current headline at MRC Newsbusters is the New York Times throws a hissy fit over Trump erasing the, quote, government's power to fight climate change. I'm assuming this has a lot to do with the endangerment rule. And boy, isn't the liberal intelligentsia having an absolute meltdown about what the president's administration did last week.
Oh, look, this is one of the wells that the left constantly goes back to. The elitist media love to plump the climate change narrative, and this is just another example of that. The Trump administration, as you know, has, and your viewers know this too, has been very open to all kinds of energy production, right? And he wants to get the country back up on its feet. He said this over and over again. It's about the economy, and it's about energy production and America first, and that's what he's trying to do. And you're right, hissy fit, the headline says it all. New York Times is absolutely going ballistic over the Trump administration's efforts here.
Michael, I want to get your thoughts on a story that hit the news wires a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. It was the FBI searched the home and the devices of a Washington Post reporter. They were seeking information on a government contractor who was accused of illegally retaining classified government materials. As director of free speech at the Media Research Center, give your thoughts on this.
Look, that's a very interesting case. I'm sure, obviously free speech comes into play. It's a reporter, but a reporter doesn't have any more rights than any other individual when it comes to a government. So it's not that they get some sort of superior right that any other person would have. So if there's a reasonable suspicion element there, if there's a government overriding interest, then there may have been a warrant involved where the FBI would have had the opportunity to go in and look at the phone. But yeah, the main point here is the elitist media loves to pretend that somehow they have some superior right, some extra constitutional right over any other American citizen. But the Constitution makes pretty clear that the First Amendment applies equally to everyone when it comes to government involvement. There is no superior or extra constitutional right that is conferred to press.
Michael, one of the things that we've spoken about frequently on our show is that one of the biggest it's hard to call them mainstream, one of the biggest corporate media fouls these days seems to not just be reporting misinformation, disinformation, some of their favorite words, but not reporting on things at all, kind of the errors of omission. There was and a classic example of this, the horrible, tragic, largest mass shooting in Canadian history, which occurred last week. Neither Chris nor I initially saw that at all when that first came out. It was only when we were going back through things that we saw it again. It was, of course, reported on a couple of the more famous right-leaning networks. But on all the others, the CBS, NBCs, ABCs, the CNNs, the MS Nows, or whatever their name is these days, zero mention, 0 minutes Do you all find that at Newsbusters as well, that on stories that just don't fit the narrative or completely destroy the leftist narrative these days, there's just absolutely no mention or reporting at all on those?
And just to follow, Michael, Breitbart had a story today that said the New York Times did not mention once, not once, that this shooter that shot up the hockey rink was transgender. Not one mention in the article.
Yeah, look, bias by omission is a huge topic that we cover here at the Media Research Center, and it's one of the worst forms of censorship that takes place in the news media. You know, if you're in charge of reporting the news and you're completely blackballing major topics of cultural interest or major policy things dealing with, you know, the political climate of the day, then you're not informing your audience. The American citizenry and the American country as a whole only works if we have an informed citizenry. And what the leftist, elitist media are doing is blackballing topics that don't fit their narrative. You're absolutely right on that. And to circle back a little bit, I'll Jen Psaki back here, to the big four news apps, Apple News, Google News, MSN, which is Microsoft, and Yahoo News, we're seeing are doing the same sort of thing. They're completely omitting stories. They're silencing conservative thought, and they're suppressing right-leaning media. And it's just absolutely outrageous because they're only giving one side of the story. And that's just got to stop.
Michael, before we let you go, is there a particular story that you'd like to direct us to on mrc.org?
Yeah, so the Media Research Center is really going after these big four news apps here lately, and we've got some fun ones coming up. We're going to give an update on Apple News here in the next week or so, and then we're going to keep hitting the others as well: Google News, Microsoft's MSN, and YahooNews.com as well. So keep a lookout for MRCFreeSpeechAmerica.org, MRC.org, and Newsbusters.org for the latest media bias in our coverage.
That's Michael Morris, Director of Free Speech at the Media Research Center, MRC.org. And on X, you can reach him at Michael_MO14, MO14. Michael, thank you so much for your time, and look forward to speaking with you in the future.
Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it.
443 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. And coming up, Chris's Corner, the Democrats' 2028 auditions. I have more on that on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Like and subscribe to us on Rumble. News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. The warm weather continues for one more day, but Thursday is a First Alert weather day. We'll be on guard for an isolated severe threat. Better chances east of St. Louis, but still be on guard late morning to early afternoon in the metro and areas east of St. Louis through about 5, 6 o'clock. Otherwise, a low of 49 in the morning, a high of 71. And again, these will be isolated storms, not widespread, but still on guard for a brief severe threat. Friday, mostly sunny, breezy, and colder, a high around 50 degrees. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
If you have a phone, you have a radio. Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
Love the all-new app.
And listen anytime, anywhere.
Hey, Jamie Allman here for my favorite go-to store for seafood, gourmet goodness, and tons of wine. It's Stars, 1135 South Big Bend. A huge selection of seafood flown in from the coast. Lemon sole, halibut, Maryland lump crab, Gulf shrimp, and you gotta try the trout dip. Plus, imported and domestic hand-cut cheeses, lots of hand-picked wines at great prices, hard-to-find gourmet foods, and fresh roasted coffee using only the best quality beans. Stars, 1135 South Big Bend, just off of Highway 40.
Hey everybody, Senator Eric Schmidt here, inviting you to the statewide Lincoln Day celebration, February 20th through the 22nd. It's going to be a great weekend with fellow patriots. We'll talk about how we're going to continue to save this country, deliver on President Trump's agenda, and also celebrate America 250. So join us there. It'll be a lot of fun.
Learn more about the 2026 Lincoln Days and get tickets at Missouri.gop. That's Missouri.gop. Paid for by the Missouri Republican Party. Jennifer Finch, Treasurer.
Tony Colombo here for Gutter Pros and Exteriors, your all-in-one service team that brings years of experience and quality that's affordable right to your doorstep. Christine and I discovered Gutter Pros and Exteriors when we bought our home and inherited a gutter problem. And they've also repaired siding damage on our home because along with gutter repair, gutter installation, and leaf protection, the Gutter Pros team are also the best for repairing other exterior damage, including fascia, soffit, and all siding repair and installation. Learn about all the ways Gutter Pros and Exteriors can help your home or business right now at gutterpros.com.
They served our country with honor. Now it's our turn to serve them. Join the freedom13.org for an unforgettable gala honoring America's heroes, February 27th at the Foundry Arts Center in St. Charles. A special evening supporting Freedom 13's bold mission, 50 camps in 50 states on more than 50,000 acres, building 650 homes for veterans, police, and their families. Tickets and sponsorship opportunities are available now. Visit thefreedom13.org. That's thefreedom13.org.
Chris Arps here, and after Becky and I leave church on Sunday, we head down the street to Capriotti's to grab a classic meatball sub. And of course, for dessert, I get a giant chocolate chip cookie. I love Capriotti's, and you will too.
On Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill. On the next,
Larry Connors, USA.
Today's story behind the story, remembering Iwo Jima, where more Marines died than in any other battle.
Larry Connors, USA. Now, weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
To your point about that, there are a lot of events coming up for America 250. The president wants people from all over to come to the nation's capital. Is he worried that by the summer, the Potomac River will still smell like poop?
He is worried about that, which is why the federal government wants to fix it, and we hope that the local authorities will cooperate with us in doing so.
448 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. And you know, Tim, it's almost fitting that the Potomac River, the river that flows through Washington, D.C., or it's affectionately called the swamp, smells like poop. So you got a poopy river going through a swampy capital where there's a lot of crooks and lying and stealing going on there. How apropos is that?
Completely full of stuff.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yes.
Don't you cuss on this here radio.
I'll try not. And you are right. It is I mean, how could you think of a more glorious allegory, to present regarding the swamp and the sludge in the swamp?
You know, I was listening to a podcast on, it was actually the NBC Daily Show in the afternoon, and they had a reporter down there, and he was saying that it was so bad that you can actually taste it in your mouth. That the taste is so bad. They've done water quality studies on it. I mean, E. coli is 10 times what it normally is in there. I mean, it's just a really nasty situation, and it's kind of wild too, because this kind of fits into the government shutdown in a sense. Trump did this in a very political way. That he said that because the local officials in Maryland let this happen, that he's going to involve FEMA into the cleanup, and we know that FEMA now is not being funded because of the government shutdown. So the president can blame the lack of a quick cleanup of this because the Democrats have shut FEMA down. So I thought that was a very smart political tactic for the president to do that.
I would agree. And for those out there who have to deal with their liberal friends, neighbors, or relatives, you can remind them that the Democrats have not shut down ICE, and they haven't shut down most of federal law enforcement, but they have shut down TSA, FEMA, and the Coast Guard. 3 things that we all wish were at full operational capacity right now.
I hope so, because I've got a trip here in the first couple of weeks of March to Dallas, and I'm hoping that this government shutdown is taken care of, because I don't want to be in a long, long line or have my flight canceled and have to drive to Dallas. So I hope this gets resolved. Of course, I'm going to say the legislature, Congress is out of session this week, should be back next week. So if there is some type of resolution to this, it's not going to be for a couple of weeks, and this might run into my trip.
Could. The last one we had was last fall, and I remember I had a trip planned in November, and I was getting awfully nervous because as the days and the weeks were piling up and more TSA agents were understandably calling in sick because they had to do things like Uber and DoorDash to pay the bills, I was getting very concerned. And then thankfully the government reopened and I didn't depart for like another 5 or 6 days.
Yeah.
So by the time I flew, it was fine, but they were still catching up to some extent. And there still were some delayed flights out there just because they weren't back to full staff. So you're right. You don't want this. For every day that we add to the shutdown, you add to the possibility that you're going to have more of a domino effect that's going to affect the entire system. I saw that when I was trying to get back in the snowstorm. You screw up one airport somewhere, and you almost all the time have that domino effect affect many other flights because of the interconnectivity of our central system.
And one of the discussions that I'd like to see being brought up when we have these government shutdowns that affect TSA. TSA was first brought into action after 9/11. There was a lot of discussion on should these be government contractor jobs or should this be a private sector job, hire someone and let them be the airport screeners. I would like to see that discussion here. Let's privatize this and let a company run this. So if there is ever a government shutdown, then it's not going to be affected by that because a private company is running. And so I think that discussion needs to be had. But that's a story for another day, Joy. Let's go ahead and do a little corner.
Chris.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And now, Chris's Corner.
The Democrats' 2028 auditions. All right, let's pick up where we left off yesterday, because Munich wasn't a one-off, it was a preview. What we're watching right now is the early, uncomfortable audition phase of the Democratic Party's 2028 presidential field, and it's already telling us a lot about where the party is and where it isn't. Since Munich, the signals have been everywhere. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear is publishing a book this fall, not on policy, not on inflation, not on foreign affairs, but on his Christian faith. And that's not accidental. Democrats know they have a faith problem, especially with working class voters. When your coalition is shrinking, you don't whisper a pivot, you publish a memoir. Senator Cory Booker just announced a coast-to-coast book tour to promote his latest tome, Stand, a 270-page expansion of his famous 25-hour Senate floor speech, which tells you something important. Democrats are still confusing endurance performance with leadership. Rahm Emanuel will be in Michigan this weekend, not campaigning for down-ballot Democrats, but rolling out a policy proposal aimed at helping veterans transition into skilled trades. Translation, Democrats are scrambling to reconnect with voters who wear steel-toe boots instead of activist credentials. Gavin Newsom is headed to New Hampshire next month for a book event. Again, the soft launch every ambitious politician insists isn't happening. Kamala Harris is quietly resurrecting her 2024 campaign infrastructure, rebranding it as, quote, headquarters, aimed at mobilizing young activists on YouTube and Substack. Same consultants, same ecosystem, new logo. She promised supporters she'll see you out there. Trust me, she means on the trail. And then came the most honest moment of all. Clinton-era strategist Doug Sosnick put it bluntly, Democrats have hemorrhaged working-class voters, 60% of the electorate, leaving wide swaths of the country where Democrats simply cannot compete, even in a so-called blue wave election. Even Gavin Newsom admitted it. He boiled the party's 2024 loss down to one word, weak. Not misunderstood, not unfairly labeled, weak. Now connect all of this back to Munich. That conference wasn't just about foreign policy, it was about seriousness, gravitas, readiness. And what did we see? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez couldn't give a coherent answer to a basic question about defending Taiwan. Not yes, not no, just a filibuster of syllables. Governor Whitmer struggled just as badly trying to explain Ukraine. That's not ideology, that's unpreparedness. So here's the problem for Democrats heading into 2028. They're trying to project strength, seriousness, and competence while still trapped in a culture that rewards vibes over answers and symbolism over substance. You can write books, You can reboot social media accounts. You can tour New Hampshire, Michigan, and Munich. But eventually, someone has to stand at a podium and sound like they're ready to run the country. And right now, Democrats aren't auditioning against Republicans. They're auditioning against the word Gavin Newsom accidentally said out loud, weak. And that's the real takeaway from Munich and everything that's followed since. That is Chris's Corner. You know, Cory Booker is bringing his book tour here to St. Louis. He's going to be speaking at a church up in North County, a big mega church that's right across the street from the subdivision that I grew up in. So Spartacus will be here in St. Louis, Tim. I mean, we should get a couple of tickets and maybe go out there.
Get some signed copies, maybe get a couple photos with the old guy. Yeah, probably not indeed. Under the banner, Chris, of a marketing and branding all-time low for Democrats, as Harry Enton told us a few weeks ago, the Democratic approval rating, the party general rating, is lower than the Dead Sea, to quote Harry Enton.
Yeah, and that is correct. The only thing that worries me is they have the enthusiasm right now. Our voters don't come out in not-presidential election years, and that's been a shift because it used to be the other way around. The Republicans came out whatever election that it was, and the Democrats were the only ones that came out during presidential elections. So that has been a decidedly shift over the last few years. 506 Speaker's Thumb Speech.
We're going to talk about how money continues to move. A new analysis by our friends at the American Legislative Exchange Council dictates the top states for domestic migration and why Missouri should continue to consider to cut its income tax to keep up.
And because we're fair and balanced here at News Talk STL, we're going to have Jeff Smith, former state senator and Democrat, on the show at 5:23. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
Ronald Reagan once famously said, "Government is not the solution, government is the problem." When it comes to economic growth, government can be a roadblock. With red tape, regulations, and subsidies, government stifles entrepreneurship and also props up businesses that deserve to go under. Unlike government, free markets encourage risk-taking, freedom to succeed or fail. Governments shouldn't be picking winners and losers, the market should. Free markets benefit the business owner and the customer by encouraging competition. Free market enabled a young man named J.C. Hall, selling picture postcards in Kansas City, to turn his idea into Hallmark cards. In St. Louis, the free market made it possible for Adolphus Busch to turn his father-in-law's local beer into the world's largest brewery. A free market also means you get to send your kids to the school of your choice. Learn more about free markets at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
People ask all the time, who the heck is Low Cost Airlines? Well, we're not just one airline. When you're talking to us, you're talking to everyone. We are the discount supermarket for all airline tickets. Plus, we have all the airlines and always have the best prices. American, Delta, United, plus all the specialized international airlines and a lot more. And we make it easy. We guarantee you'll talk to a live human in 60 seconds. You can have the rates you need and have your trip booked in 5 minutes. Now, how cool is that? And remember, when you're talking to us, it's like talking to every single airline available with one fast phone call. All you need to do is call and find the best prices to fly wherever it is you want to go. So are you ready? Call Low Cost Airlines right now. 800-515-2397. 800-515-2397. 800-515-2397. That's 800-515-2397.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS.
Hour from Town Hall, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. An avalanche on February 17th in California's Sierra Nevada near Castle Peak killed 8 of 9 missing backcountry skiers and left 1 still missing, while 6 others were rescued. Placer County Sheriff Wayne Wu says this hits close to home.
One of the 9 missing decedents is a spouse of one of our Tahoe Nordic search and rescue team members. So, as you can understand, this has not only been challenging for our community, it's been a challenging rescue, but it's also been challenging emotionally for our team and our organization. We are committed to being here until the end and making sure we make all these recoveries.
2 skiers were hospitalized amid the region's strongest winter storm of the year. Havana is turning to Moscow for aid amid a U.S. oil blockade.
Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez is meeting with top officials in Moscow amid worsening fuel shortages and blackouts on the island. He says deprivations are getting worse after President Trump threatened sanctions and tariffs on any nation that sold oil to Cuba. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is urging the U.S. to end its blockade and promised to continue supporting Cuba and protect the country's sovereignty. The wait list for Cubans trying to buy fuel can stretch for days, and Russian companies have stopped selling tourist packages because the Cuban government won't provide fuel to the planes that land. Asked if Russian fuel shipments to Cuba could derail warming ties with Washington, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov says they don't think the issues are linked. I'm Jennifer King.
On Wall Street, the Dow by 129, the Nasdaq rose 175, the S&P advanced 38. More at townhall.com.
This is Dennis Prager for AmFed Coin and Bullion. There's something about the feel of a gold coin in your hand and the way the light reflects off its intricate details that has always captivated me. Nick Grovich, AmFed's owner, turned that same passion into his livelihood. Nick began collecting coins as a teen, and that interest grew into a nationally respected business offering only the finest quality coins at the most competitive prices. But the truth is that although Nick is a rare coin dealer, he doesn't believe in rare coins. Rare coins do not make sound investments, but they do make dealers a lot of money. See, that's part of what I respect about him. AmFed specializes in buying non-performing numismatic coins and turning them into gold or silver investments that provide liquidity and perform competitively against the market. Whether you're buying or selling, call 800-221-7694. That's 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com.
Here's the Wall Street.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. The warm weather continues for one more day, but Thursday is a First Alert weather day. We'll be on guard for an isolated severe threat. Better chances east of St. Louis, but still be on guard late morning to early afternoon in the metro and areas east of St. Louis through about 5, 6 o'clock. Otherwise, a low of 49 in the morning, a high of 71. And again, these will be isolated storms, not widespread, but still on guard for a brief severe threat. Friday, mostly sunny, breezy, and colder, a high around 50 degrees. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
If you turned 65 recently like me, it's important you find a Medicare Advantage plan that gives you the coverage you're looking for. But finding one can be difficult. The best thing I did, and I suggest you do the same, is call a licensed insurance agent and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to, so make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare Advantage plan can be easy if you do what I did. Make a quick call right now to learn more. Thank you.
800-439-7851. 800-439-7851. 800-439-7851. That's 800-439-7851.
Free speech is alive and well in America.
Thanks for taking my call.
Right here.
We know what's going on.
To have our great awakening.
You see through the smoke screen.
It's cool to be woke.
News Talk STL.
Until it's not.
News, analysis, opinion. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now. They just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
So it's been what?
A week since a trans teenager shot up a school full of children in Canada. And now we've got a gender-deluded man in a dress gunning down his family at a high school hockey game in Rhode Island. Honestly, at this point, what is there even left to say? This is what, the dozenth trans-related shooting we've had in a year? And it shouldn't surprise us, more than 70% of people with gender dysphoria also have another mental health diagnosis. Studies have shown that people with gender dysphoria have much higher rates of psychosis and schizophrenia, and yet our society and our medical community continues to refuse to treat gender dysphoria as the mental illness that it very clearly is. Instead, we affirm their delusion, we help them hate themselves, tell them it's fine to deny reality, and we pump them full of artificial brain-altering chemicals. And then when they lose it, the left blames the gun instead of the clearly sick person pulling the trigger. And around and around and around we're going to go. Because until we start recognizing the root of this problem, we're going to keep having the problem.
Don't think I could have said it better than Brittany Hughes of the Media Research Center. Speaking of the Media Research Center, we had him on in the first hour, and I thought it was apropos to play a little Brittany Hughes because I heard that this morning on Mike Ferguson's show. I was streaming on the app from mid-Missouri, and that I was getting ready to head down to back to the Capitol, and that totally caught my attention. I was absolutely fixated on what she said. Couldn't agree more, Chris, with Brittany Hughes on the transgender shooters and the fact that one phrase where she said, so we have people who have diagnosable maladies like schizophrenia and multiple personalities and delusions, so let's pump them full of all kinds of hormones and drugs and see what happens.
Yeah, I was listening to the morning show myself. I didn't hear that interview or that clip, but I did hear Mike and Jerome talking about this, and they were making the point that, you know, when young girls have anorexia or bulimia, and clearly that is a mental disorder. We're not affirming that, telling them that everything is okay. We're trying to get help for them. And why, with this transgender sickness, why we are affirming that, why are we denying reality, all because of political correctness is just madness. And I have been saying this for years, that liberalism gets people killed. Mm-hmm. It's a pie-in-the-sky, utopic type of philosophy, but in the end, it gets people killed. And with telling these people that they can be females or males of their opposite sex when it's biologically impossible, and they can't handle that because society won't accept that, they take it out on innocent people and kill people. Liberalism kills people, literally and figuratively.
Many famous leftists are infamous for saying things like every single life matters and not meaning it every time there is one of these mass shootings. Well, apparently that doesn't apply to pumping individuals full of hormones and life-altering drugs and lopping off otherwise healthy body parts, and then these people descend into some sort of internal madness of their own and then take the lives of other people and their own. We have seen this, as Brittany said, over a dozen times. Chris, at some point, anecdotes become a trend and a reality that you have to face.
Yeah, remember in the 70s, MASH, the popular TV show that was on forever. There was a running joke in that show. Max Klinger, one of the reasons he used to try to get out of the military was he dressed as a woman. He wanted to get a Section 8, which gets, or I think it was Section 8 or Section 32 or something, was the Army designation that got you out of the military because you had a mental disorder. Now we celebrate it and affirm it, and it's absolutely sick. And as we talked with Dr. Tobler yesterday, there are people that this is part of their worldview. They think that you can actually change sexes and think that this is okay. But the bottom line of it, especially when you talk about politics, is follow the money. And as I said yesterday, I saw a study that showed by 2030, to transgender sex reassignment surgery is going to be a $10 billion a year industry.
Yeah, it's an industry of horror, and it needs to be stopped. And I hope the left, I do not want people to get harmed or maimed. I want these killings to stop. But the more that the left doubles down on this ideology, the better it is for the common sense conservative right, because it's another one of these 80-20, 90-10 issues that the lunatic left continues to absolutely be on the wrong side of history on.
And when there was one of these transgender shootings, not these last two, but the last major one, there were all kind of stories coming out where these transgender people were militant. They said that they are basically going to force you to accept this. They had AR-15s and weapons and said they were ready to go to war over this. This is not just people that just have mental disorders and want to be accepted. They're going to make you accept them or they're going to take your life.
Mm-hmm. And this latest one, I can understand why the corrupt corporate media doesn't want to show any shots of this latest shooter. He literally looks like Biff with a wig on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, there's a guy who was obviously deranged, and many people lost their lives because of the facilitating of this absolute mental illness. We have a lot of stuff coming up here at News Talk STL this Friday. Chris and I and Joey will be live at the Missouri GOP State Lincoln Days in Springfield Friday evening, February the 20th. If you're going to be there, come on by. Say hello to us. We'll be broadcasting 4 to 6 p.m. live from Lincoln Days. Tuesday is the State of the Union address. We're going to carry that live here on News Talk STL. President Donald J. Trump will address a joint session of Congress this coming Tuesday night at 8 p.m. We're going to have it live from start to finish here on your one-stop shop for the most excellent live and local conservative talk news and analysis in the land. That's at News Talk STL. And through the rest of this week, we will continue to feature 2026 Winter Games coverage on News Talk STL. We'll have a Winter Games update coming up around 5:25 this afternoon before we bring in our favorite lovable Democrat who will debate with this afternoon, Jeff Smith. So a little Winter Games update. We'll speak to former state senator Democrat Jeff Smith, and then Chris has got the Buzz versus the Chief.
The Boss.
The Boss.
The Boss.
Why did I write the Buzz down? The Boss versus the Chief.
That sounds like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I know Chief came in and he had some things to do to nurse. Was it Ratchet?
Don't give it away, Joey.
Oh,
that
was just a guess.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Chris, in a Winter Games update, the U.S. continues to remain in a solid third place for total medals. 24 medals won. 7 of those are gold. The Norwegians, expectedly so, the Nordic folks, the hardy Nordic folks, crushing it in this Winter Games. 33 medals, but the host country, Italy, right behind them at 26.
Yeah, and third place for the United States is good because we usually don't fare very well in the Winter Olympics. We have our individual stars and individual events that do well, but as a team, traditionally in the Winter Olympics, the U.S. doesn't do as well as we do in the Summer Olympics.
And a lot of folks may be happy to learn that Team USA, the men's hockey team, has advanced to the hockey semifinal. So I'm sure Team Canada, we will eventually meet them at some point. They probably have the bracket set up, so Canada and the U.S., if they succeed in getting all the way to the final, will play each other. And Jordan Bennington, St. Louis Blues' own, will be in goal.
Speaking of this transgenderism, Tim, and I'm sure you saw this too because you're a subscriber to National Review. I was going to mention this and forgot, but they had a breaking major story this morning that the Massachusetts healthcare system is ending gender-affirming care for minors.
Saw that.
Sanity is coming back.
We can only hope. I mean, and that's on the heels. I had another happy news story for you that I'm so glad you brought that up. That is a huge one indeed. I think Congressman Honor told us about another hospital that was ceasing the practice as well. And in another major development, this is from our friends at the Daily Signal. Their headline is the LGBTQ mafia has lost more than half of its Fortune 500 partners. So, Chris, shut off the money, you shut off the propaganda. A group called the Human Rights Campaign, I think you've probably heard of them.
Yeah, that's the big LGBT group.
They have lost 65% of their participants that they had last year. Many companies deciding it's not so great to be on the wrong side of an 80-20 issue.
And I think what has spearheaded this is Target. I mean, for years, Target was talked about the turnaround that they made. Target was kind of a low-budget, kind of cheap area. They kind of updated their merchandise. Target was the place to shop. They were really, really big. They were competing with Walmart and all of the big retailers. and then they went woke with those tuck-it bathing suits for men.
So strange.
And all of the other merchandise that they had. And, Tim, their stock price has sunk and lost a lot of value over these last 3 or 4 years. I think I saw something, it's like the last 10, 12, 13 quarters, they have lost money. And I think you can tie it directly to their wokeness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to appeal more than the insane subset of old, white, liberal suburban women.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they can't maintain an entire nationwide industry like Target all by themselves.
Yeah.
You have to have a broader coalition of people that you want to have shop at your store.
I just wonder, though, when these companies do go woke like that, and it seems like the general public is not with them. It may be popular, but the general public, flyover country, doesn't support this. But are they trying to be proactive as business people of trying to get out in front of this by, knowing that as the population ages, more and more younger people are accepting LGBTQ and transgenderism, that they want to be able to say that, yeah, we were supporting this when it was kind of popular, not as popular as it is now. Because, business people are forward thinking. Are they looking ahead and seeing the demographics that are going to be their shoppers in the future support this, and they just got kind of ahead of their skis?
Mm-hmm. I think they went too far, right?
Yeah.
I mean, most people have been accepting of the LGB.
TQ.
Well, the LGB type of lifestyle, but when you start forcing people to accept the transgenderism, I think that was for a lot of people a bridge too far. That's where they lost a lot of folks, and I think people are retaliating.
What is LGBTQ? What is Q? Of course, is queer, but
Yes.
isn't lesbian and bi and gay? Isn't that queer? Why did they add the Q?
I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in this
Yeah,
arena.
but I just said it's like
Maybe Jeff Smith knows.
Queer describes LGB.
Right.
Why do you have to throw the extra Q in there? Were they needing the extra letters in there?
And then have you seen it where they put the plus
Yeah,
at the end? I'm
yeah.
like, how many more things do you have?
Yeah.
How many more?
There's already 47 genders.
Yeah, are we going to start getting into stuff that we can't talk about on the radio?
Yeah.
I mean, is that what's next? I don't know. Hey, we've been talking quite a bit about why people move, why people and their money moves around the country as the Missouri legislature continues to debate a item that Governor Kehoe gave them as a priority to look at further reducing, overhauling, and eliminating Missouri's income tax. Found another great article from our friends at ALEC. Want to tell you all about their latest findings, and that's the subject of today's Speaker Stump Speech.
Listen to me, listen to me.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
It's time for the Speaker's Stump Speech, sponsored by Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com.
Jonathan Williams, the president of the American Legislative Exchange Council and their chief economist, was recently on American Radio Journal, and I was able to pick up a transcript of his recent discussion on that, and he has an excellent monologue about what the 50 laboratories of democracy are or are not doing when it comes to tax policy. And he focuses on the tax policy that the state of North Carolina has pursued for many years. Jonathan says North Carolina is the big winner this year in the U.S. Census Bureau's recent published data on migration trends. On net, nearly 85,000 individuals moved into North Carolina just this past year from one of the other 49 states. This would not be a surprise for astute observers of state policy. North Carolina's lawmakers have undertaken a multi-year effort to create a flat tax for individuals, reduce overall income tax rates, and eventually completely eliminate the corporate income tax altogether this decade. I believe North Carolina is currently at around 2.5% or so for their corporate rate. I think the lowest in the country. Missouri's right behind them on that, by the way. This is the first time in decades that another state, get this, has attracted more domestic migration in a year than either Texas or Florida. So, yeah, I know North Carolina has beaches, but they're not as nice as Florida beaches, let's be honest. North Carolina's a lot further north, and they're a much, much smaller state geographically. Kamala Harris could tell us all about the size of states. But they have attracted more domestic migration in 1 year, in the past year, than Texas or Florida. I think that's notable indeed. The success for North Carolina, it didn't happen overnight. It's the culmination of a years-long turnaround. Today, North Carolina's economic outlook in the ALEC published Rich States, Poor States edition is the 4th best in America, up from a low of 26th in 2011 before their historic free market policy reforms. North Carolina's impressive showing in this migration data suggests that Americans have taken note of the incredible economic turnaround happening in North Carolina, going from 26th to 4th in barely 14 years. Notable indeed, and it's because of the policies that they have put into place. Among the other states Americans are moving to in this latest data, embracing lower taxes and much more limited government is a common attribute. The top 5 is rounded out by, no surprises here, Texas, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Arizona. When you take all of those states together, those 4 states I just mentioned, and add them to North Carolina, get this, nearly 300,000 Americans moved into those 5 states from July of 2024 to July of 2025. Well, how about the states that the liberals say are just functioning oh so well? Oh, California, it's so awesome. Yes, it's got great weather, but then they'll say, yeah, but California's economy, if it was its own nation, would be the 5th in the world or such and so forth. However, that's true, but California has continued to be on a downward trend, and they're not going to be able to toot their own horn much into the future. Because get this, for the 5th year in a row, California has lost more residents to domestic migration than any other state in the union. Not a surprise for those of us who follow economic tax migration and policy. 229,000 Californians left the state over this period. In total, since 2016, so that's the last 10 years, the state has lost 2.3 million residents to one of the other 49 states. Just to put that into context, that's more than the entire population of the entire state of New Mexico. It's sometimes suggested that it's not public policy, but immutable characteristics like weather and geography that determine how Americans move. That argument is contradicted by California, which has picture-perfect weather and very attractive scenery. It somehow, though, still sees net losses of hundreds of thousands of residents to the rest of the country every year. Income taxes are particularly important to Americans who vote with their feet. Of the 10 states gaining the most residents, 4 of those, nearly half, have no personal income taxes at all. The next 4 have flat taxes, and only 2 of the top 10 have progressive income taxes. On the other side of the coin, 7 of the 10 states losing the most Americans have very high progressive income taxes with exorbitant rates. States like New York, Illinois, New Jersey, Massachusetts are the states that lose residents the fastest each year. These 5 high-tax states lost nearly 500,000 residents last year alone. The lesson's clear. The policies you choose on the state level have a significant impact on whether your state attracts or loses residents. States that embrace low taxes, minimize regulations, cut their spending, manage their budgets fiscally while providing essential services, and foster individual freedom create environments where people and businesses thrive. States that burden their residents with high taxes and stifling regulations, they're going to continue to see their residents flee for more competitive states. Missouri should want to be on the winning side of the coin and should follow Governor Mike Kehoe's mandate to overhaul, modernize, and update our tax system here in Missouri with an eye towards eliminating the insidious regressive income tax. Come on, Missouri legislators, let's keep up with the top and run away from the bottom. And that's the Speaker's stump speech for today. There we go.
Yep.
Next up, Chris, the moment we've all been waiting for, our good friend, former Missouri State Senator, Democrat Jeff Smith. We're going to talk to him about his extremely interesting life, the TED Talk that he gave in New York many years ago, the book that he wrote, and what he's focusing on these days in the private sector world.
We'll also ask him how's his hoop game.
Indeed.
Mr. Smith can play a little basketball.
He is a basketball aficionado indeed. He'll join Chris and I and Joey next. Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 1019-94.1. Number one for live and local conservative talk, News Talk, STL.
Follow us on Rumble at News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. The warm weather continues for one more day, but Thursday is a First Alert weather day. We'll be on guard for an isolated severe threat. Better chances east of St. Louis, but still be on guard late morning to early afternoon in the metro and areas east of St. Louis through about 5, 6 o'clock. Otherwise, a low of 49 in the morning, a high of 71. And again, these will be isolated storms, not widespread, but still on guard for a brief severe threat. Friday, mostly sunny, breezy, and colder, a high around 50 degrees. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Hey everyone, it's Todd Showalter with my buddy Joey V. Be sure to join me and Joey for the Right Mind Show, where we put the fun in our dysfunctional world. Saturdays at 5, right here at 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
Do you suffer from back, knee, neck, joint, or headache pain? If you're not, God bless you. You must be a superhuman Avenger American. But for those of us who are mere mortals and who do have these afflictions because of maybe an accident, maybe some kind of chronic condition, maybe something that just popped up. Maybe it's something that you pulled when you were being a weekend warrior. I got the one-stop shop for you. Top-rated chiropractic care in Eureka, servicing the entire region. Comprehensive Chiropractic. I'm heading in to see Dr. Caleb Gorman tomorrow. I go for injuries and things of that sort, and also for some maintenance because, I'd rather do that than go under the knife. So whether it is chronic conditions, whether it's something acute that maybe happened to you because of an injury or a fall, whether you're an athlete or whether you're just, like I said, a weekend warrior, they can take care of you at Comprehensive Chiropractic. They've got awesome docs there. Dr. Pat Fader has built and grown Comprehensive Chiropractic for the last 20-plus years or so. I've been a patient there long before we even launched this radio station. That's why I was so excited to have the privilege of speaking for them, because I so believe in everything they do. And I also have trusted my entire family. I've referred my friends to them, my folks, and so many other people who have also gotten relief at Comprehensive Chiropractic. Now, they do all that foundational chiropractic care, and they do so much and provide so much more. They have the studio upstairs. It's a beautiful facility. They have Pilates and yoga classes. It's an open-air kind of studio concept with big, giant skylights. Really awesome certified instructors. They have the licensed massage therapist. They also have holistic personal trainers, and that's not, you can afford it. Trust me, it's not for the lifestyles of the rich and famous. They'll work with your schedule. They'll provide a plan for you. What do you want to do? You want to lose weight? You want to get more in shape? You want to increase your balance and your strength? You can do all of that at Comprehensive Chiropractic. And finally, so important, your diet, your nutrition. They will assist you with that as well. Talk to you about the supplements that you may be on or the ones you perhaps should be on. Not just popping pills, but putting the right healthy, natural substances into your body. Comprehensive Chiropractic, soup to nuts, top to bottom, stem to stern. They'll take care of all your comprehensive health care needs. That's cchiropractic.com, cchiropractic.com, Comprehensive Chiropractic for all your comprehensive health care needs.
Rhino Shield is engineered to outlast paint, formulated to outsmart the elements. Rain or shine, sleet or snow, mold or mildew, our home exterior coatings intelligently designed to stand up to Mother Nature. Call 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com.
Craving seafood but worried it'll be too spicy or break the bank? La Juicy Seafood in O'Fallon has you covered. They're not your typical seafood joint. Choose from 5 spice levels, including not spicy, so everyone can enjoy our famous Cajun boils. Bring the family, doodle on the tables, enjoy the full bar with legendary margaritas, and feel right at home. La Juicy Seafood, 373 Winding Woods Drive, O'Fallon. Call 696-924-9171.
This Winter Games Update brought to you by Corel Roofing and Best Buy Flooring.
Westwood One Sports presents this special update of the 2026 Winter Games. Has there ever been a day of Olympic hockey like today? 4 quarterfinal games and 3 went overtime, including the United States with a thrilling 2-1 victory over Sweden. The Swedes had tied the game with only 90 seconds left in regulation, but in the 3-on-3 overtime, Quinn Hughes with a shot that caromed off the post and in. U.S. advances. Earlier, Czechia had leads of 2-1 and 3-2 on Canada. The heavily favored Canadians got a tying goal tip-in from Nick Suzuki with 3.5 minutes remaining, and in the 3-on-3 overtime, Mitch Marner split the defense, scored on a backhand. Canada advances, winning 4-3. Finland trailed Switzerland 2-0 with 6 minutes to go, trailed 2-1 with 2 minutes left. Finland won 3-2 in overtime. Slovakia beat Germany 6-2. The U.S. will play Slovakia in the semifinals on Friday. Finland, who plays Canada. Well, that's Winter Games Update. John Stash Hour, Westwood One Sports.
Your life, your goals, your legacy. With a dedicated Fidelity advisor, it's all part of a comprehensive plan to help grow and protect your wealth. Visit fidelity.com/wealth. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to A to Z Savings, our biggest sale of the year.
Happy to be here. Can I get some rotors?
Would you like brake pads with that?
How much are the brake pads?
Free with Duralast rotors.
Free. Really?
Really? Free.
I also need some oil.
Would you like an oil filter with that?
Yeah. How much is that?
Free with the oil.
Free. Really?
Really. Free. It's part of A to Z Savings with hundreds of deals.
From A to free.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Ends March 9th. Restrictions
This
apply.
hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stiefel. Contact your Stiefel financial advisor at stiefel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
This is day 5 of the Trump Republican shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. Why are we in this moment? It's because Republicans have decided that they would rather shut down FEMA, shut down TSA, and shut down the Coast Guard than get ICE under control. The American people know that ICE needs to be reined in.
Welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. That was, as the great Rush Limbaugh would say, Chris, Hakeem Jeffries.
One of the most scripted talking point politicians I've ever seen in my life. I wonder if Jeff will agree with that.
Well, we'll see. He's a guy who definitely is capable of speaking off the cuff. He's former Missouri State Senator and current executive director of the Missouri Workforce Housing Association. He runs his own company, J.R. Smith Policy Solutions, and he joins us now here at News Talk STL. Jeff, good afternoon. Thanks for being with us here on the program.
You're welcome, Tim. Good to talk to you. How you doing?
We're doing just fine. So, Jeff, we're going to try to get into a lot of different things, but are you with Hakeem Jeffries on making Americans' lives more miserable at the airport and not providing aid for those of us here in the Midwest who are about to go through tornado season? I mean, what's up with you Democrats? Why can't we keep the government open?
Well, Republicans do control all branches of government right now. So I think it's hard to, I think it's the onus is on Republicans to find a way to have conversations and mollify enough Democrats to get to 60 votes in the Senate. So far, they haven't shown a sign that they're going to do so. I think the roots of this shutdown are really in the unpopularity of what's happened with ICE. Look, Donald Trump, when he campaigned, he had the majority of the American public on his side when it came to immigration. When he said, we're going to deport the worst of the worst. When he said, we are going to make sure that the border is shut, and Joe Biden didn't do it, but I will. He had the vast majority of voters on his side. But now we're on different terrain because the vast majority of American voters don't support masked ICE agents escalating conflicts in the streets in Minneapolis and other cities. So it's when the Trump administration, I think, overreached that they left themselves vulnerable to a democratic play on this issue like what we're seeing right now.
Jeff, how are the Democrats going to explain to the public that when the TSA agents start calling in sick because they're not getting paid, the Democrats have shut the government down over DHS funding when DHS funding in the government is going to be going on for another 2 years at least? There's a disconnect there. How are they going to explain that to the public?
Well, good to talk to you, Chris.
How are you, my
Hope
friend?
You're doing well.
I am.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I think this is a question that's endemic. Every time we've seen shutdowns, I mean, think back to when we all first started following politics, like 30 years ago, when Clinton was the president and there were the shutdowns when Republicans controlled Congress, there was a lot of brinkmanship. And the question that's, I think, endemic to all of these shutdowns is when are Americans going to actually start feeling pain? And when they do, who are they going to blame? So right now, it looks as if the TSA agents and the Coast Guard and Customs and Border protection and and ICE can continue mostly uninterrupted because of the money that Congress has separately appropriated. But pretty soon, TSA agents are going to miss their first paycheck, and that'll be, I think in early March. So the longer it goes, the more likely it is that people are going to call in sick in large numbers, which could cause long lines, which could make people feel inconvenienced enough to put pressure on politicians to come to the table. Then we'll know which party the American public is blaming. I think right now, to be honest, and I'm just trying to call it like I see it, I think it's too early to say. I think it's Republicans' talking point is going to be Democrats are the ones that are holding this up. Democrats are the ones who are, not supplying the votes we need in the Senate. And Democrats are going to say, well, Republicans control all three branches. It's your job to find a solution that we can work with. And as long as there's masked ICE agents shooting people and, who didn't present a clear threat, the American public might lean towards Democrats because I think most people did not like what they saw in the streets of Minneapolis. So, it remains to be seen. Well, it's going to take probably 2 weeks for us to see where the public is coming down.
Speaking with Jeff Smith, former Democratic state senator from the great state of Missouri. He's now in the private sector, handling a lot of important projects here in the state and all across the region. Jeff, I actually said some really nice things about you earlier in the program because I told people the story of how you and I met. You were a state senator at the time. I was a young Republican legislator rising through the ranks, and I talked about how you came to me to ask me, a Republican, to handle some of your important legislative priorities, and there were things that you and I agreed on. Maybe you just needed a crazy right-wing conservative so people wouldn't think you were so nuts. But we worked together on issues like school choice and like rights of fathers in domestic situations, and we worked on some economic development matters as well. And I don't know if you'll take this as a compliment or not, but the guy who reminds me of you now is John Fetterman in the U.S. Senate. And so I look at John Fetterman as kind of how you and I operated back in the day. I would like to know your kind of a philosophical question. What do you think about Fetterman? Do you think he should be more of the future of the Democratic Party, or do you think, the crazy AOC squad wing is taking the party in the right direction?
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I mean, I think most of the stuff that we worked on together, it wasn't really partisan stuff,
right.
For the most part. Like, I want every kid to get a great education, and wherever that happens, I don't really care. I don't really care if that kid, is in a neighborhood school or in a school a neighborhood over. I want him to have a great education, and I want his parents, his family, and the student to be able to make that decision. And I don't think a kid's fate should be determined by something as arbitrary as the neighborhood where he or she happens to be born. So we agreed on that. And we agreed on things like, making sure that, like why should we imprison, people if they're struggling to pay child support and they're, is that something, or do we have debtors prison in our country? Mm-hmm. No, I don't think that putting someone in prison is going to make it more likely that they're going to pay child support. I think we agreed that was going to make it less likely. So, if people are making $100,000 and they're willfully not paying their ex, that's a problem. If people are struggling, we need to help them get an income so they can pay child support, so they can be in their kids' lives, so that their kids have two parents in their lives. So I think we agreed on a lot of common sense stuff. And I think John Fetterman is definitely in that mold. So I do consider it a compliment because I think he tells it like it is. And people are tired of the BS. Mm-hmm. People are tired of the platitudes and the talking points. I agree with you. I mean, like, I tend to agree with Hakeem Jeffries certainly more than I agree with Mike Johnson, but I don't really love Hakeem Jeffries' style because he does come across as really kind of canned and contrived. And so I like that Fetterman brings spontaneity and unpredictability and freshness to the Democratic Party. And I certainly think he's a heck of a lot closer to where the median voter is in this country than AOC. So I'd prefer to have Democrats nominate a standard bearer in 2028, who, like a Josh Shapiro. And I know he's not super close with Fetterman. So it'll be interesting to see how Fetterman responds if Shapiro is a leading presidential candidate, because they had some conflicts as Pennsylvania politicians, as same party polls often do, in a state vying for, kind of to be the leading Republican in their state or the leading Democrat in their state. But the point is, Fetterman is a heck of a lot closer philosophically to the median voter in this country, and that's where Democrats need to get closer to if we want to win in 2028.
Jeff, Jay Nixon left the governor's mansion in 2017. Since then, there have been 3 successive Republican governors. Before him, of course, was Matt Blunt. I guess the question I want to ask you, who is in the Democratic bench here in Missouri that could win a statewide office? The bench seems to be very shallow.
The bench is pretty shallow, because since it's not just that we don't have the governor, it's that we don't have the Secretary of State, we don't have the state treasurer, we don't have the state auditor, we don't have the lieutenant governor, we don't have the attorney general. So when you don't have any of those positions and you don't have legislative leaders in either chamber, it becomes difficult unless you have a self-funder to raise the money and have the name ID to run for office. So, Stephen Weber is a senator from Columbia who I think in another era, 15 years ago or maybe 15 years in the future would be a great statewide candidate. He's young, he's smart, he's substantive, doesn't present like he's far left. He's combat veteran, 2 tours of duty in Iraq. When he was in college, he left college at SLU to go and volunteer, and he was a grunt. And then he, was a sergeant there. So, I mean, he's the kind of guy who's got the profile who could appeal in throughout Missouri, not just in St. Louis and Kansas City. So he's somebody that I'd keep my eyes on. But let's be honest, Democrats aren't coming close. We're not coming within every loss, since Claire McCaskill in 2018, every loss in every statewide race has been by double digits. So we've got a ways to go. And as long as we're losing, it's kind of a chicken or egg thing. When you're losing these statewide races by double digits, it's hard to get a good candidate like Stephen Weber to want to run statewide. But if you can't get the good candidates, you're probably going to keep losing by double digits. So that's the paradoxical, kind of trap in which Missouri Democrats find themselves. And it doesn't help that we're associated with a national Democratic Party that tends to be more liberal than your average Missouri Democrat.
Jeff, we're hitting a break here, but we'd like to continue the conversation if you have the time to talk about some of the things you're working on these days. Can you hold on for one more segment?
Yeah, I'm just on the road home from Jeff City, so yeah, I can hold on.
Well, God bless you for escaping. I did that earlier today. Yes, indeed. All right, we're going to hold former State Senator Jeff Smith over. He is actually working on some things that I think are more of the 70, 30, 80, 20 types of issues. We'll talk to him about that, the book that he wrote, and the TED Talk that he gave. We'll continue our conversation with the former State Senator Jeff Smith when we return here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Follow us on Rumble at News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. The warm weather continues for one more day, but Thursday is a First Alert weather day. We'll be on guard for an isolated severe threat. Better chances east of St. Louis, but still be on guard late morning to early afternoon in the metro and areas east of St. Louis through about 5, 6 o'clock. Otherwise, a low of 49 in the morning, a high of 71. And again, these will be isolated storms, not widespread, but still on guard for a brief severe threat. Friday, mostly sunny, breezy, and colder, a high around 50 degrees. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
News, analysis, opinion.
This is called officially the Great Healthcare Plan.
When the Republicans rubber stamp everything he does, the constraints go away.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli here with our great friend Chris Cooper from Serenity Wealth Management. Hi, Chris.
How are you, Vic?
I don't want to put anybody else down, but that when you go up and visit you at Serenity Wealth, your place looks like home.
So a lot of financial advisory offices, they have, the big mahogany desk or the big marble entryways and things like that. The stock market channel on the TV when you walk in the door, right? That doesn't really drive a good conversation. Good financial guidance and advice starts with a good conversation. People are nervous. People are afraid to talk about finances, right? And so you can see a little standoffish. Well, my objective is to try to have a good, casual conversation. By having those conversations about life, goals, objectives, it's what makes me understand what our financials are supposed to fund.
So if somebody does want to have a good conversation, how do they do that? How do they find you?
Our website is the best way to do that because you can get all the information you need, understand where we are, get a little bit more information, all that. SerenityWealthNow.com.
Reach out to Chris and Stacy today at SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.
Hey, Columbo here for Rockwood Charcoal. Rockwood is made from 100% pure Missouri oak and hickory, so you're cooking with the best and supporting local industry and a local business all at once. There's over 100 area Rockwood retailers. Find yours at rockwoodcharcoal.com.
Remember those magical moments in Mom's kitchen? The heavenly aroma of fresh baked cookies? At Trolley Stop Bakery in Chesterfield's Forum Shopping Center, our co-op of talented bakers has been perfecting that homemade magic for 4 decades. From the gooeyest cookies in town to custom pies, cobblers, and cakes, everything's made from scratch, just like Mom and Grandma's recipes. Need that perfect corporate gift? We ship our famous cookies nationwide. The Trolley Stop Bakery, 67 Forum Shopping Center, or TrolleyStopBakery.com. Because some traditions are too sweet not to share.
JC's Wayback Machine.
This week we dig into the archives for the lead singer of the song Vehicle and who's written songs for 38 Specials, Skynyrd, and Cheap Trick, and who co-wrote Eye of the Tiger, the great Jim Peterick. And we'll remember Harry Carey, who left us 28 years ago this week. All brought to you by the Weber Automotive Group.
It's JC's Wayback Machine. Every Saturday night, 6 to 9. On News Talk STL. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Hot button issue, the motor vehicle inspections bill. That one passed the House. What can you tell us about that legislation?
Yeah, so right now, used vehicles that are over 10 years old or with mileage over 150,000 miles have to get their vehicles inspected every 2 years as part of the registration process. This bill would eliminate that. It would have a couple other provisions, though, that would require safety inspections, and that includes for vehicles that are deemed unsafe by law enforcement.
548 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show, and we are speaking with Jeff Smith, former state senator and current executive director of the Missouri Workforce Housing Association. Jeff, I want to talk a little St. Louis politics with you, if you don't mind. We know there is no love lost between former Mayor Tashara Jones and the current Mayor Kara Spencer. Megan Green, the aldermanic president, is a Tashara Jones sponsor. We've seen the sniping on social media between Tashara Jones and not so much from Kara Spencer, especially regarding snow removal and other issues. Where do you see this heading in the future, and do you see Tashara Jones trying to regain her seat in 4 years?
That's a good question. Yeah, you definitely put me on the spot. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but that's okay. I'm going to be honest with you in that, I don't think it's been a great look for the former mayor to be out there sniping all the time about the current mayor. I think when you have supporters, the best way to go about it, let your supporters say whatever they want on social media about the person who defeated you, but it's just not the best look to be out there doing it on your own every day. So, given the margin of victory from Mayor Spencer, unless things go dramatically wrong for her the next few years, I would be very surprised if she were vulnerable to a Tashara Jones comeback because the race just wasn't very close, Mm-hmm. it was a 25-point race.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What's your take? I mean, certainly former Mayor Jones has been very active on social media. I think it's been smart for Mayor Spencer to ignore it and not really take the bait.
Jeff, I'd love to know what you from your perspective, what does the city need to do to at least start engaging in a turnaround? You know, we had I don't know if people want to make the analogy here or not, but St. Louis Cardinal baseball attendance seems to be somewhat of a barometer as to the health of the city. And there was a massive decline in attendance for Cardinal baseball games last year. I know the product they've been putting on the field last few years hasn't been great, but many people also cite the issues of crime and public safety. We have had a big sea change in the city of St. Louis politics, public policy over the last few years. Kim Gardner, succeeded by Gabe Gore. Cori Bush, succeeded by Wesley Bell. And Tashara Jones, succeeded by Kara Spencer. And even though they're all Democrats, there's if people are watching closely, there's definitely a very different difference in personality, and I think even in public policy. But I'm the Republican looking at this. What say you as someone who has been involved in and around Democratic politics in this region?
I mean, I think you're exactly right. You know, even though Wesley Bell, Democrat, beat Cori Bush, Democrat, Wesley Bell's a pragmatic, mainstream, center-left guy that can work across the aisle to do what's best for the region. And Cori Bush was a squad member who kind of seemed to be more concerned with national and even international issues. Was one of the 4 or 5 most progressive members of the House. So I think, that is also similar with, Gabe Gore. He's kind of a nonpartisan guy. There's Republicans like him, Democrats like him. We don't really need an ideological prosecutor. We need a prosecutor that knows how to prosecute and knows how to manage. And his competence has been a breath of fresh air for the region. And I was actually kind of hoping that when Wesley Bell won the congressional seat, because I've always been a fan of merging. I think our region's way too fragmented. I hate that the city and county are split. I hate that we got 88 municipalities in the county. It's a waste of a lot of bureaucracy. So I was kind of hoping when Wesley Bell got elected to Congress that the powers that be in the region would get together and say, well, hey, Gabe Gore's doing a great job as city prosecutor. Why don't we just have a regional prosecutor that covers the city and county and let Gabe do it? So that's kind of my take. I agree with you that there's, different brands of Democrats in the city. And I think the city has taken some positive steps in its selection of leaders this last year or two. What do we need policy-wise? Brad Crist had a bill today that was heard in the Commerce Committee, and I really love Brad Crist's bill, and it would let new developments in downtowns across the state, not just St. Louis, but in small towns too, let new developments in so-called innovation zones keep more of their additional tax money that they're generated. When that AT&T building, the biggest building in Missouri, almost 1.5 million square feet, it's been vacant for almost a decade. That's producing nothing for anybody. And his bill would, according to the developer who owns it, get the developer to put almost $400 million of investment to redevelop that building, attract new people. And, I like proposals like that are bold. I think we got to do something bold because the economic trajectory of Missouri is not great.
Jeff, we're going to need you to stay on the road, my friend. We're hearing you running over the tracks there. We don't want to be responsible of something happening. Hey, I've got one more political question for you before we get to what you're involved in, because I love your political analysis, even though we're on the wrong side of the aisle. But Texas, of course, is the holy grail for Democrats. Every election cycle, they think that they may have a chance of winning a statewide office there. They're thinking they may have that this year with John Cornyn and potentially Paxton being the nominee. Is Jasmine Crockett, is she the great hope there in Texas?
She's not. I don't think she can win a statewide election down there. So I think Colin Allred came really close. He had a profile that he's kind of switched gears the last few weeks, but, he came within a few points of winning last cycle. He ran well ahead of Kamala Harris in Texas. I think he made a decent statewide candidate. James Tallarico, who's a state rep and a former pastor, who can kind of speak the language of, the Bible in a way that not many Democrats on the national stage can. I think he'd be a good statewide candidate. I think some of Crockett's, rhetoric in the past about Republicans, you can't, if you want to get the votes of Republicans, you can't spend all your time calling them the worst people in the world, right? You got to kind of reach out to them. And it doesn't mean you have to say they're right about everything. Doesn't mean you have to, knuckle under and co-sponsor Republican bills, but it does mean that you can't just trash them all the time. So I don't think she'd be a great statewide candidate because Texas is still a Republican-leaning state, and the Democrat can't win it unless he gets some Republican votes. Democrats have a unique opportunity in Texas. If Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, probably the most corrupt public official in America, is the nominee, then and he openly cheats on his wife, and he's been indicted, and I mean, look, I just think we would be really silly to waste this opportunity that we might have to put that seat in play by nominating Jasmine Crockett, who isn't, I think, going to appeal to swing voters.
Well, we would agree on that last point for sure. Jeff, before we let you go, we got a couple minutes left. What the heck are you working on at J.R. Smith Policy Solutions these days?
Well, a lot of stuff. I've worked on affordable housing issues for 15 years now and continue to work to try to make sure that we build and rehab decent, affordable housing for people. It's not a giveaway. It's for people who are working, but they're making, $35,000 a year, and they can't afford a very nice place. So it's a program which helps build decent new housing for people who are lower income. I'm working with Brad Christ on another bill called the biometric. It's like a biometric data privacy act, so that companies can't just go and sell your facial data or your fingerprints. If you give that information to Apple or your gym when you walk into your gym, and companies shouldn't be able to just sell that and monetize it. So we're working on legislation to stop that. I'm working with Jim Murphy on a bill to keep certain substances out of the hands of minors, but to ensure that adults have medical freedom and they can use plant-based opioid substitutes if they're trying to manage chronic pain. And I'm working with Melanie Stinnett, who's a Republican out of Springfield, to try to restore voting rights to people when they get out of prison. Once you've paid your debt to society, like I did once upon a time, I think we should encourage people to engage in the civic sphere and tell them that we want to hear their voice. We want them engaged instead of shunning them. So I'm working, a bunch of different stuff. It's all bipartisan stuff, which is kind of the approach I like to take.
And that's Jeff Smith, former state senator, current executive director of Mo Workforce Housing Association, moworkforcehousing.com. Jeff, hope to talk to you again, my friend. Enjoyed the conversation. Coming up next, Larry Connors, USA, the story behind the story, 6,000 Marines killed capturing Iwo Jima. 1019 941 News Talk STL. Drive safe and have a great evening.
Hey, it's Susie Moore. If new flooring makes you think hassle, think again, because Michael's Flooring is changing the game. For over 30 years, Michael's has been locally owned and trusted for quality, variety, and amazing service. Whether it's carpet, hardwood, laminate, luxury vinyl, or ceramic tile, their expert team makes installing new floors exciting, not stressful. That's why customers keep coming back. Visit Michael's Flooring at St. Peter's, starting